Southern Cal has probably been the most talked about team this offseason. Definitely one of the most talked about teams. And understand why. I mean, that was a big hire to get Lincoln Riley away from Oklahoma out to Southern Cal. It's not very often you see something like that where somebody voluntarily leaves a high-profile program to go to another high-profile program. I mean, coaches move up all the time if they have success at a smaller school. And you know, I'm not here to put down Oklahoma or Southern Cal or debate which is a better or bigger school or more tradition or whatever. That's not the point. You know, but the point is, it's just something you don't see very often. So I completely understand that. And then you had all the transfers that came along with Lincoln Riley. So I get the excitement that's going on in Southern Cal. I mean, you had Brian Kelly voluntarily leave Notre Dame to go to LSU. So it's something that we hardly ever see happen twice in the same offseason or right at the end of last season. But good morning, though. This is Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou. And guess what? I'm live for you on LouTube today. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it also. And in addition to that as well, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. I post college football videos almost every single day of the year. Sometimes they're even watchable. You can let me know down below whether you think this one's watchable or not. I'm doing a series of schedule preview videos. Now, these aren't prediction videos. I'm just going team by team, putting schedules up on the screen, kind of going through the schedule, comparing it to last year's schedule, looking at their non-con slate of games. Is it an easy slate of non-con? Do they have a difficult non-con? Conference schedules. What are the road games? What are the home games? Where's the trap games? Rivalry games? Are there any difficult stretches where you have maybe 2, 3, 4 tough games in a row? That kind of thing. Like I said, I've done several of these already. There's a playlist you could check out to look for all the teams I've done so far. Up today, though, Southern Cal. That's right. We're going to take a look at USC. Shout out to Stacy R. over on the Uncle Lou Patreon page. She suggested I do this Southern Cal schedule preview. So, Stacy, this one's for you. Shout out to everybody over on the Patreon page. By the way, a huge thank you for all the support you guys give me on this channel here over there on the Patreon page. I literally could not do what I do without the people's support over on the Patreon page. If you want to check the Patreon page out, let me know which team it is you want me to do. There's a link in the description of this video that'll take you over to the Patreon page. You can take a look around and get yourself signed up. But let's get into it. Now, Southern Cal, did I do Florida State last? Southern Cal's another one of these teams. There's several of teams right now that fit into this category, right? These teams that I'm in my early 40s. So you got teams that have been pretty good for the majority of my lifetime that aren't very good right now, and Southern Cal has been one of those teams over the last few years. Miami falls into that category, Florida State, Texas, Nebraska, Tennessee. That's several programs, and every offseason the subject comes up, you know, who's more back between sort of that list of teams, right? Who's finally gonna, make a run towards a conference title or a playoff berth or something like that? Is it going to be Florida State, Miami, Texas, Nebraska, Southern Cal? I don't know. Southern Cal had a rough year last year, worst year they've had in 30 years. I understand the excitement of Lincoln Riley, and look, whatever anybody thinks about Lincoln Riley, he's one of, if not the best offensive minds in all of college football. He brings Caleb Williams with him from Oklahoma. I don't think anybody doubts that Southern Cal's offense is going to take off and that it's not going to take very much time for it to happen. The problem or the worry, if you want to look at it that way, if you're a Southern Cal fan, in my opinion, is going to be the defense. The defense was not very good last year, and Oklahoma's downfall, or Lincoln Riley's downfall at Oklahoma, has been defense every year he's been there. They've had one of the worst defenses in the Power Five almost every single year at Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley, and he brought his defensive coordinator to Southern Cal from Oklahoma. I'm not here to try to tell you that that means Southern Cal will never have a good defense under Lincoln Riley. Of course they can, but Lincoln Riley is going to have to change his philosophy defensively, in my opinion, if Southern Cal wants to be a legitimate national title contender. And that doesn't have anything to do with Southern Cal. That would be the case no matter where Lincoln Riley went. He's got to figure it out defensively. I think Southern Cal will be much better this year than they were last year. I don't think Southern Cal's defense from last year can be fixed in one offseason with Lincoln Riley and Lincoln Riley's defensive coordinator. So I do think Southern Cal is going to have a good year. Do I think they're winning a national title in 2022? No. Again, this isn't going to be a prediction video where I tell you wins and losses on these games. Just going to kind of talk about some of these games and give you my thoughts on them. I do a series of prediction videos later on in the offseason. I usually start those in June, where I do the same kind of thing. I put the schedule up on the screen, but I give you a winner and a loser for every single game on all these schedules. But let's get started with Southern Cal. Now, of course, they've got the spring game coming up in mid-April, so about 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks away, I guess, on that for their spring game. Not going to talk much about that on the schedule preview. Spring games are what they are. Southern Cal kicks off their regular season schedule in week 1, though, Saturday, September 3rd, at home against Rice. Now, Southern Cal, of course, is a Pac-12 team. They play 9 conference games, so you're going to be looking at 3 non-con games for Southern Cal, Rice being the first one. This should be a good start to the Lincoln Riley era at Southern Cal. Southern Cal will be a significant favorite, and I don't know of very many people who expect this game to be close. Week 2 starts the Pac-12 schedule on the road at Stanford. Stanford's another team that in the last 3 or 4 years has really nosedived. It's on the road. I do like David Shaw as a coach, but I feel like this is a game Southern Cal would have a really good chance of winning. Fresno State, the second non-con game up for Southern Cal. That's a home game. Fresno State is no slouch in the group of 5. They're no pushover. I wouldn't consider this a cupcake game by any stretch of the imagination, but one that if you're Southern Cal and you want people to start taking you seriously again, this is definitely a game Southern Cal is going to have to find a way to win. Back to the Pac-12 now on the road, Saturday, September 24th at Oregon State. Again, and this is a common theme when you're talking about teams like Southern Cal, Florida State, Miami, Texas, and Tennessee. Southern Cal has got to get back to the point where nobody doubts whether or not they will beat the Oregon States of the Pac-12, right? Or the Arizonas, or the UCLAs, or the Colorados, or whatever the case. You used to be able to just pencil these games in every single year as a win for Southern Cal. That hasn't been the case the last few years. With that being said, I think Southern Cal is much better than Oregon State. Doesn't matter to me that it's on the road. I would assume Southern Cal would be a significant favorite in that one as well. And then you have one of the biggest games of the year, in my opinion, for Southern Cal, a home game against Arizona State. Arizona State, there was a lot of hype around Arizona State around this time last year. Some of that shine sort of wore off with the NCAA investigations that popped up and as far as I know are still underway there, and they disappointed last year. Arizona State did. I haven't heard as much talk about Arizona State this offseason heading into 2022 as I did last offseason heading into 2021. But I still think Arizona State is one of the best 3 teams in the Pac-12 South, that being, of course, Southern Cal, Utah, and Arizona State. It's a home game for Southern Cal. You like to think they can get a win here. We'll see. Another Pac-12 game at home, Washington State. Again, a game that, how will you know when Southern Cal is back? When you don't have to spend any time talking about the Southern Cal-Washington State game, right? When you just know, oh my God, Southern Cal's beating them by 40. And maybe they will. We'll see. And then probably the biggest game, may even be the toughest game on Southern Cal's schedule, a road game Saturday, October 15th at Utah. Utah's been a great team in the Pac-12 over the last couple of years, won the Pac-12 last year, nearly beat Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. They got a lot of talent coming back, an elite coaching staff who gets the most out of the talent they have. This will be a great game. And then Southern Cal has their bye week. Pretty good spot for a bye week in terms of where it falls, right? Kind of halfway through the schedule, so you play 5 or 6 games, get you a week off to rest your players, get people back from injury, that kind of thing, and then go ahead and take on the second half of your season. Now, a lot of teams will try to or like to schedule their bye week in front of a big game, right? So you then get 2 weeks kind of to prepare. In that respect, maybe it's be a little bit better if the bye week was 1 week, earlier. Swap Utah and the bye week, right? Play Washington State, get a bye week before you go on the road and play at Utah, giving yourselves 2 weeks to prepare for that game. But you don't have total control over where your bye week falls. Of course, it depends on where other teams' bye week falls and things like that. So not a terrible bye week, but if I was a Southern Cal fan, I would prefer it come before that Utah game. Come out of the bye week, go on the road at Arizona. That should be an easy win for Southern Cal. Home against Cal, again, a game that Southern Cal, you shouldn't even have to think much about it. 30, 40-point win. That's where Southern Cal needs to get. to where you don't even have to think about these types of games. Colorado, again, that 1 or 2 good years in the last 10 years or so, a lot of bad years, and Southern Cal should roll in that one. And then a rivalry game that, in my opinion, not even really a rivalry game, the Southern Cal UCLA game this year at UCLA, it doesn't really matter. But, I mentioned this, I think, when I did a video a week or 2 ago about some of the best rivalries in college football, and I mentioned this Southern Cal UCLA game. Go back and look at an aerial shot of last year's Southern Cal UCLA game. It's pathetic. There's 5,000 people there. I mean, it looks like a high school game. Is it a rivalry if no one cares enough to go? I don't know. Chip Kelly's at UCLA. Been disappointing, really, after having a really good run at Oregon 10, 15 years ago. Hasn't been able to find that same success yet at UCLA. Now that he's had 2 or 3 recruiting classes, though, we'll see if UCLA can finally figure it out. But again, a game you'd think Southern Cal could win. And then, of course, sort of your annual non-con rivalry game to close out the season on Saturday, what is that, November 26th? Yes, what it looks like to me, against Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish. Brand new coach with Notre Dame, like I mentioned. Southern Cal, the beneficiary of a weird coaching change, right? Lincoln Riley choosing to leave Oklahoma to go to Southern Cal. Notre Dame, not so lucky. Lost Brian Kelly when he chose to leave to go to LSU. Notre Dame chose to promote from within, hiring the defensive coordinator as head coach. He's never been a head coach before, and I believe this is the first time Notre Dame has ever hired a head coach with 0 head coaching experience. So it's going to be interesting to see how it works out. I know the players love him, the recruits love him, the fans love him. That's great. That can change quick, though, if Notre Dame starts losing 4 or 5 games a year. I would be surprised if that happened. I know Notre Dame catches a lot of hell on the internet. Haven't really won a major postseason game in about 30 years, so I get it. But they're winning 10 games in their sleep under Brian Kelly every single year, with the exception of, I think, one odd year where they were like 3-9 or something. Brian Kelly was at Notre Dame for over a decade and averaged like 11 wins a year. Not easy to do. Yes, he perpetually lost the big games, whether it was a playoff game, whether it was a BCS game, like back in 2012, right, when I lost to Alabama in the BCS title game. Even New Year's Six Bowls, winless. They just can't seem to get a win in one of these major postseason games, whether it be national title, playoff, New Year's Six, BCS, whatever the case. But they ain't had much of a problem in the regular season. This is a game that I would love to see get back to the level it was at 15 years ago when Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush and Pete Carroll were running Southern Cal and Snoop Dogg and Will Ferrell on the sidelines for every single game and the stadium was sold out. I think everyone knows, Georgia's my favorite team. I'm a college football fan, right? And when the Notre Dame Southern Cal game is huge, to me, that makes college football better. Some of the best games in the 2000s were played between Notre Dame and Southern Cal in the mid-2000s. They're right up there with anything else that was going on. They were must-see TV at famous Bush Push. You had the year that Notre Dame refused to cut their grass on their field for like 6 weeks or something, leading up to the Southern Cal game in an attempt to slow Reggie Bush down. You had all kinds of weird stuff going on. It was just an amazing game to watch every single year. And I'll be honest, the last few years, it's been a game that I've found myself paying less attention to. I hope with Lincoln Riley at Southern Cal, he can elevate this program back to the point where they're playing major games that matter and that people care about nationally from coast to coast. I hope that's the case, but this will be a good game and a big game at the end of the year. First game against Notre Dame for Lincoln Riley as head coach of Southern Cal, and the same can be said for Notre Dame's head coach in his first year as well. So there you go. That's Southern Cal's schedule. Now, feel free to let me know in the comments section down below, how do you think they're going to do? Maybe give me a ceiling and a floor, right? Like a best case scenario and a worst case scenario. Again, starting in June, I'll do another series of videos where I'll give my predictions, a win and loss record for 50 or 60 teams. I don't know how many I'll do, a bunch of them. I'll go through the schedule game by game and tell you whether I think a team's going to win or lose every single week. We'll come up with a final regular season record for all these teams. This is just kind of getting an early look at the schedule, though. Toughest games I see here, honestly, at Utah, home against Notre Dame, and Arizona State might be the 3 toughest games. and they're kind of spread out. You got Notre Dame at the very end of the year. You play Washington State in between Arizona State and Utah. Bye week falls in the middle of the season. That's pretty good. I'd prefer it be before the Utah game. Toughest stretch of games. Arizona State, Washington State, Utah. It's probably toughest stretch of games is probably that last two at UCLA, and then the Notre Dame game. Probably the toughest. A trap game on here. I don't know that there's a trap game unless you consider. Maybe you look at Washington State as a trap game. It does come right between two pretty big games that will go a long way towards determining the Pac-12 South, right? You play Arizona State at home on October 1st. You play at Utah on October 15th. Like I said, I think those are the three best teams in the Pac-12 South: Southern Cal, Arizona State, and Utah. You play Arizona State and Utah over a 3-week span, and that Washington State game is kind of sandwiched in the middle. So if you're looking for a trap game, to me, a trap game is a game that a team's got no business losing, but potentially they could lose it because of where it falls on the schedule. I don't see an obvious one that jumps out, but maybe the Washington State game, just because it falls right there between two of the bigger games of the year for Southern Cal. And when I say bigger games, at least towards determining who will win the Pac-12 South. The Notre Dame game is always big at UCLA. I get it. But anyway, that's Southern Cal's schedule. Let me know down below what you guys think. Don't forget to check out the Patreon page. Let me know what team previews or what schedule previews you'd like to see me do. I'm going to go through the Patreon page first and do all the suggestions over there. Once I go through that list, then I'm going to come back to these videos and get teams out of the comment section that you guys want to see me do. All right. Appreciate you guys watching. Have a good morning.